Will I help you?
Is this thing on? Yeah, it's on, right? Can you hear me? Yeah. Wow! What a fantastic audience, my friends. How are you today? You're having fun yet? Yeah, I actually challenged the organizer and said that I was going to start by chanting, developers, developers, developers. But since I'm not Steve Ballmer and I don't own some basketball team or something, I'm not going to do that. Instead, we're going to talk about the topics that you may not think as much about all the time, which is things like speed and data and ecosystems and empowerment and all the other things that as a developer you may not always spend as much time thinking about, but that are critically important for you because they influence what your job will look like today and your job will look like tomorrow. And the other thing which it will influence is whether you will have a job going forward or not at the company you're currently at, because we are seeing a humongous disruption in the industry. Yeah, so one of the things I want you to remember from this talk is business is too important to leave to the business people. As a developer, as a technology person, you have to become involved in this. For all the people standing there, there are a number of empty seats up here, and you can take my seat there at the corner. So just come in. I wasn't planning to sit down in the coming hour, if that's okay with you. Yeah, so what I wanted to do is to tell you a little bit about what I see happening in the world coming from Sweden. I work at Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg. I'm Dutch originally. Is it still on? Still off? It's right now. Is this better? Can you hear me? Everything I just said you didn't hear? No. Gee. Start all over again, huh? Okay, sorry about that. And the interesting thing that most people do not realize is that the world has never been better. And for all the epochaholics out there, the people that care about, you know, acid rain and peak oil and Trump and all this other stuff, if you look at the data, we have never been in a better place in the history of mankind. Yeah, if you look at poverty, there is much less poverty in the world. We're down to, what is it? I think the people in poverty have dropped from 29% to 9% of the world population. We're living longer. We have a 50% improvement of life expectancy. We have much fewer war deaths. We have much less racism, sexism, and other forms of discrimination in the world. The world has become a better place dramatically fast over the last decades. And you know what? You know who caused all this? We did. Because what did you look at is that it's all because, or to a very large extent, because of digital technologies. Things like mobile phones and smartphones, internet access, optimization through data availability, everything being connected, allowing us to reach levels of efficiency and effectiveness that we've never seen in the past. Yeah, so the world is the best place it has ever been, especially for us in the Western world. And it's all thanks to us. Hence, developers, 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 right? But there is a dirty little secret that not many people talk about. And that's this. If you look at the Fortune 500, how many companies that were on the list in 2000 are still on the list in 2014? And the group is too large to have too much interaction. But the interesting thing is that more than half of the companies that were on the Fortune 500 in 2000 are gone in 2014. You know, as you'll see in a little bit, I used to work for Nokia. You remember Nokia? Yeah? Yeah, you're all laughing, right? I mean, I had left Nokia at the time. I wish I could claim that I was smart enough, but I wasn't. I had just gotten a job offer from Silicon Valley, and I wanted to spend some time there. But between 2008 2009, Nokia went from being the top dog in the industry to the poodle in the corner that everyone likes to kick in 9 months. And I hate poodles as much as the next person. I think poodles deserve to be kicked. But you don't want to be the poodle of your industry, right? And the interesting thing is that I looked at this. You know, I left Nokia, but I never sold my shares in Nokia. Yeah? And seeing the shares in your company go from above $40 to below $2, My wife looked at me when we looked at our investments and she said, honey, from now on, I'll take care of the investments. But the point is, I started to look at what the heck happened to Nokia. And the interesting thing is that everyone looks at Nokia as the exception. Nokia is not the exception. Nokia is what happens to every company that doesn't fundamentally reinvent itself on a continuous basis. You remember Andy Grove from Intel, only the paranoid survive? I'm not asking you to be paranoid, but the point is that we are at such a phenomenal state of disruption in society and in industry that we all need to take responsibility for what is happening. And what I want to spend some time with you on this morning is on that specific transformation. Is that okay with you? I have lots of other presentations on this computer, but I thought that I would take this one today. Yeah? So here is your first quiz. Does anyone recognize this fine specimen of the human species? You use a product that he invented on every day. 300 people in this room. And no one remembers the inventor of the computer mouse. Yeah, that's what you get when you invent important things. Douglas Engelbart, inventor of the computer mouse. The digital revolution is far more significant than the invention of writing or even printing. Imagine what this says. The invention of writing allowed humans to organize themselves beyond tribes of 100 to 150 people. Yeah, the whole notion of printing caused the whole Reformation in the Catholic Church that led to the Protestant churches, which fundamentally redefined society as a whole. And what he's claiming is that we're at the beginning of something that is even bigger than that. And you know who's driving this transformation? You are. Hence, developers, developers, developers. Yeah? But the interesting thing is that if you look at what is happening in the world, I mean, companies now last on average 10 years on the Fortune 500. This is just the big companies, but smaller companies get disrupted at exactly the same stage. And why does this happen? Because companies fail to innovate and build new core capabilities, and it is now this whole notion of digitalization that is the new disruptor. What is digitalization? Very correctly, the use of digital technologies to change the business model and provide new revenue and value producing opportunities is the process of moving to a digital business. Gartner definition. And if you look what does this actually mean, this means not just adding software to products. This doesn't just mean selling products, pure software products. It also means data-driven services and digital services. And it doesn't just affect R&D. It also affects sales and channels and marketing and manufacturing and HR and finance and support. And it isn't just about going agile. It is also about platforms. It's about analytics and data integration. It's about your digital partner ecosystem. That's why events like this are so critically important, because none of you and none of the companies that you represent is an island. We all operate in a business ecosystem, and we need to be part of this. Yeah, so these are the things that as a developer today you need to be worried about, because the world is changing. If you think you can be a developer that just gets requirements thrown over the wall from product management, and then you just build it with your big headphones on, and you throw it over the wall to verification and validation, you have a trouble waiting for you, because that type of development is going away rapidly. Yes, some of the online companies that I work with, as a development team, you don't get any requirements. Yeah, in a typical SaaS environment, you are responsible for a certain part of the system with your team, a certain part of the architecture, for instance, of the website. And as a goal, you may get to improve conversion for your part of the website from 3.2% to 3.4% over the coming 3 months, over the coming quarter. That's going to be your target. And whether you're going to go pogo sticking here in Karlsruher city center, or you go to the beach, although that's probably pretty far from here, isn't it? Yeah, okay. I live 300 meters from the ocean for the first time in my life, loving it. Yeah? Or you go and you interview customers, or you make your website faster, or you do a fundamental redesign. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you deliver on the outcome metrics. Are you with me on that one? Yeah? So that is what I see many developers move towards a world where they're not told what to build. They're asked to be creative together with product managers, UX designers, and others to together create the outcomes that deliver on the needs of the company. Yeah, and that's what we're going to be talking about to some extent, because there are many aspects happening there. So 3 key takeaways. I know you Germans. Are you in the football series, by the way? Yeah, so the Netherlands isn't. Sweden is. Who would have thought, right? Sorry, this was my jab at the Swedes. Sorry, Swedes. Are there any Swedes in the room, by the way? I guess not, right? I mean, we only have 10 million of them, and we try to be somewhat protective of them. Yeah, companies are increasingly disrupted, and digitalization is the root cause. There is a pathology of change resistance that have several recurring patterns, and to survive, companies need to adopt a digital business operating system. That's what we're going to be talking about. So what's the structure? First, I'm going to tell you who I am and where I come from. Then I'm going to talk about trends in industry. Then I'm going to talk about this new business operating system that you need to implement, because it's about speed. And if I say speed, what should you think about? You should think about agile, continuous integration, continuous deployment, A/B testing, those kind of things. Then data. How do we become much smarter, with using data? How do we make decisions based on data instead of based on our opinions? Then ecosystems. We are not an island. We live in a complex world. We have to operate using our ecosystem and make sure that we spend our time on the things that are most differentiating for our company. And then finally, empowerment is about the fact that hierarchical organizations, bosses and managers are going away. We're moving towards a new way of organizing where there are no bosses, but where you are your own manager. You are your own boss, and there are several companies that are moving towards manager-free organizations or boss-free organizations where you are fully empowered to deliver on what you and your colleagues have agreed upon is the most important topic. And then by the end, there will be a conclusion with a few other key takeaways. Is that okay? Very briefly about me, I used to be a young and innocent professor of software engineering. And then in the early 2000s, in Sweden and in the Netherlands, according to my father, my grandfather told him that I'm coming from Germany, somewhere in the 17th century, so I feel a very strong relationship to you. I hope you can feel it too. Yeah, but maybe not. Yeah, but in the early 2000s, I got a call from Nokia, and I got the opportunity to run the Software and Application Technologies Lab at Nokia Research Center. 200 persons, 6 sites around the world. I was living on an airplane, totally fabulous job. And then, after the 3rd winter in Finland, on a Saturday morning, my wife puts me down on the couch, puts a cup of coffee in my hands, looks into my beautiful blue eyes and says, "Honey, I don't know about you, but I think we're moving." Which kind of complicated things a little bit. Luckily, I'd gotten an offer from a company in Silicon Valley called Intuit, so we moved to Silicon Valley, worked in Mountain View. Intuit, you don't know Intuit, it's 8,000 persons. So when I left, $4.5 billion in revenue, pure financial software as a service space for private persons, tax software, small businesses, etc., etc. Great, great, great time. Beautiful. I mean, if you haven't lived in California, you don't know what you're missing. But after a few years, because of family reasons, we moved back. I now run Software Center that I'll show you on the next slide. I run a small consultancy where I work with a bunch of companies. And I am an angel investor in startups. So if you're planning to start your own company, come and talk to me afterwards, because, you know, really working for someone else, huh? That was partially funny, but no one dared to really respond. I'm not sure what that actually means. Probably your boss is in the audience too, right? And if you laugh too loud, you go like, "Oh, take me, take me." That's not good for you. I run something called Software Center. Software Center is a collaboration between 11 large companies. You remember Tetra Pak from the milk packages? They also built the mechatronics to actually build the factories that fill those packages. Saab Technologies is not the bankrupt Dutch car company. Not sure if you followed the story around Saab, but it's a Swedish car company, and then some crazy Dutch guy with Russian mafia investors bought the whole shebang, and it became a mess and it went bankrupt. Siemens, I'm not sure, have you heard of Siemens? Bosch, funniest company. I do a bit of work with them. I go out to India on a regular basis to work with them, and then always some Indian person comes up to me and says, "Are you related to the Robert Bosch that started the company?" The answer is no. You really think I would be here giving talks if I was? Okay, sorry. Qualcomm is an SME. We have Access Communications, Volvo Cars, Volvo Trucks. Do you sell Volvos in Germany? I mean, with all your car brands? Yeah, you do, right? It was a joke. It was a joke. Not funny, I admit. Boeing is in there, Ericsson and Grundfos. And our goal is digitalization capability of the European software-intensive systems industry. We look into things like continuous delivery, software architecture, metrics, custom-related ecosystems. We also look into autonomous systems. I hope I didn't hurt that gentleman's feelings, but he's already walking out. He doesn't even want to look at me. No, that's his. There's now a free seat here in the front for those of you who want to sit. Internet of Things, those kind of things. Basically, if it's cool, we're doing it. So come and talk to me afterwards. Yeah? We do not only work with traditionally metal-bending companies. Booking.com, you may know them from hotel bookings. Spotify, anyone using Spotify here in this room? Yeah, we're going to come back to Spotify. No one? What? No Spotify? Is there a German competitor or something that I'm not aware of? No? Okay. Rovio, people behind Angry Birds. Unhappy Angry Birds right now, but that's a different story. Klarna, King, the company behind Candy Crush. Anyone here know Candy Crush? No one will admit to having played Candy Crush. Everyone knows someone who has played Candy Crush. It's funny how it works. And then finally, Microsoft. We've had a couple of PhD students spend time with Microsoft, specifically the data analytics team, to look at how to do A/B testing and those kind of things. So that's where I come from. Why Sweden? This is my short sales pitch. Third largest country in Europe. 10 million people, we're less than 1% of China, incredibly strong industry base, not quite as strong as Germany, but for 10 million people, 1/8 of what Germany is, pretty good. Yeah, and not only that, we have all these fabulously successful startups, and interestingly enough, the Nordics, yeah, the Nordics is Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, represents 3% of the European population and has 1/3 of the billion-dollar exits. Yeah, this is, I think, really something I'm incredibly proud of. And we have lots and lots and lots of companies in the pipeline to become the next billion-dollar exits. So that's who I am and where I come from. That didn't hurt too much, right? I can see all of you think he was funnier in the beginning. Yeah, sorry, guys. Yeah, so trends in industry. The first thing that you have to realize, if you look, and I'm sure you've all seen this thing, the Gartner technology hype cycle, almost every topic on this list is driven by software. If you go to my favorite futurologist, Gerd Höfner, I think a German, judging from his accent, although he may be Austrian, and I have a history of insulting Austrians by calling them German, and I don't know why that is. Yeah, so he again identified all the major technologies that are happening. Again, almost all those technologies have software as a major component in them. And I think that that's important to realize. One of the things that he does here, which is quite interesting, is identify what are all the scenarios that come from this. And what is important to understand is we are now talking about automation of everything. I do quite a bit of work with the automotive industry. What is the automotive industry busy with? Not with giving drivers better support. The automotive industry is now focusing on getting drivers out of the car completely. Yeah, we take drivers out of the equation. I mean, a few years from now, it will be forbidden to drive a car, and your kids or your grandkids will ask you, why did you allow people to drive cars? That's way too dangerous. Yeah, so, I mean, actually, this is happening. This is happening in industry after industry. In the finance industry, we have robot advisors. In the telecom industry, we have self-managed networks. If you are building software to support humans do a better job, get out of it, get rid of the humans altogether. Much better deal. Everyone's a little nervous around this one. I don't know why that is. And the other one is decentralization of everything. Yeah, decentralization means rather than having this centralized authority that we take our things from or our trust from, we now have mechanisms to create trust in a distributed fashion. And this is happening. Think blockchain and related technologies. Yeah, this allows us to, through transparency and replication, achieve forms of decentralized trust building, decentralized transactions without the need for a centralized authority. And this is a big thing. We don't yet understand what a big thing this is. If you look at Google, we want Google to be the third half of your brain. If you look at deep learning, anyone working on AI, machine learning, deep learning? That is not a lot of hands, actually zero. Spend your summer reading up and playing with this stuff. I'm serious. This is going to change the world. If you haven't looked into it, you have to at least know how to spell deep learning, PyTorch, TensorFlow. And if you're interested, go to a company called Peltarion.com, a company that I'm on the board of. We have a super duper graphical user interface platform for building deep learning systems. Really, really nice. That was my sales pitch for today. Back to the presentation. Sorry, there will be marketing interruptions. Guys, I know that you think that I'm pitching here. Really, the world, 90% of all software development where we have the data available will be not you coding a solution, but you training a convoluted neural network, a deep learning model. Yeah? You have to become proficient at this, because otherwise you're going to go the way of the dinosaurs. And you know, dinosaurs had a pretty good run. 265 million years, that's a lot longer than humans were around. But they're still extinct. This is supposed to be funny, guys. Stay with me here. Yeah, so what is important here to realize is that software drives everything. As Mark Andreessen said, software eats the world. What is the first thing that I do in the morning when I wake up? I brush my teeth. How do I brush my teeth? I use an Oral-B electric toothbrush. 2 years ago, Oral-B announced a software ecosystem for toothbrushes. Yeah? They put Bluetooth in the toothbrush with a couple of sensors. It hooks up to your mobile phone and it gives you feedback on the quality of your toothbrushing experience. Who doesn't want that? Yeah? And then throughout the day, everything you touch is driven by software. When you go running in the morning, which you all did this morning, right? That's why I saw so many people out on the street. Huh? You know you should have gotten your workout in. Yeah, so if you look at sports or logistics or infrastructure or forestry or animal agriculture, electricity generation, telecommunications, self-driving cars, banks, even garbage collection these days is driven by software. Yeah, a few years ago I visited a startup in Finland. They put ultrasound sensors in these big recyclable waste bins. And what these things do, they're connected to a 2G connection. Every hour or so they read how full is the waste basket. They send the data back to the mothership, and that allows the garbage collection company to dynamically create a garbage collection route where they only pick up those bins that actually need to be emptied. And then you can think, Jan, why? Who cares? Well, you care about a 50% reduction in garbage collection costs. That's the power of software and connectivity. And who is doing this? You are. Developers, developers, developers. Self-driving cars, driven by software. Robots, driven by software. Military, drones. I know, sensitive subject in Germany, but still, yeah, military is moving towards drones. It's much better to shoot down pieces of metal than humans, right? Not funny, clearly. Lots of pacifists in the room, sorry about that. Even the least productivity improving industry, the industry that is stuck in the 18th century, construction. There was recently an Economist article that said that construction has seen 0% productivity improvement since 1947. Since 1947, construction has seen 0% productivity improvement. You know how hard that is? We have had thousands of percents of productivity improvement in our industry. They have had 0, but even that industry is now dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century with 3D cement printing, automatic bricklaying, automated street laying, etc., etc. All of this is driven by software, but why is everything moving to software? You've all read The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. You all know about build, measure, learn. Yeah, so the whole notion is I have an idea. This idea I can then use to build something. That build process results in a product. I put the product out in the field. Sorry, there is a circle around this. That product I put out in the field that allows me to measure how the product is used. That gives me data. From this data I can learn. These learnings I give new ideas. The faster I can go through this cycle, the more innovative I am. So if I use the automotive industry, a car platform has a life cycle of around 10 to 15 years. That means if you're lucky in an entire career, you can go through a build, measure, learn loop once, maybe 3 times in your entire career. If we look at the car, oh, the second person leaving. There's now another empty seat, my friends. Come and take it. Not funny. Cars go through a development process of 3 to 4 years, which means I go through a build, measure, learn loop every 3 to 4 years. What about car software? Car software already is in some cars and soon will be deployed every day or every week, which gives me an innovation cycle, a build, measure, learn loop that is 100, 200, 500 times faster than any other technology. If you're wondering why everything goes to software, it's because it gives me the opportunity to create innovation cycles that are infinitely much faster. I have to start speaking faster. Is there anyone here who doesn't speak English? Because then this will have been a very boring talk. Can I go a little faster? Is that okay? Okay, just making sure. And besides, if you didn't speak English, you didn't understand my question, just for the record. Yeah, so if we look at the size of software in our systems, I frequently am asked, I've been a professor of software engineering for more than 20 years now. I'm that old. I know I look it, but still. Yeah. And my colleagues often ask me, Jan, you've been a professor for such a long time. Have you still not solved the problem? How hard can it be? Yeah, and then I use this graph to explain to them that basically the size of the problems that we're solving goes up with an order of magnitude every 5 to 10 years, depending on the industry that you're in. And the architectures, ways of working and tooling that work for a 1 million line of code system, they don't work when you're building a 10 million lines of code system. And the things that work when you're building a 10 million lines of code system, they don't work when you're building a 100 million lines of code system. And you think I'm joking, but my friends at Volvo Cars are telling me that their newest cars, by the best of their calculations, have 100 million lines of code in the car. Now, I'm not sure where you come from, but for me, that's a lot of code. Yeah? Try to build a system that can do that. It's more complicated than an airplane these days, the cars that you drive. And it's only getting worse, or better, depending on your definition. Yeah? So this is what's happening. Data, lots and lots of data in the world. It's very hard to find accurate numbers. This is one estimate. 50 terabytes of data is created every second. I think this is a gross underestimation. I think it's a lot more. If you look on the internet, yeah, what people do, every 60 seconds, 266,000 hours of Netflix videos are watched. Yeah, I think the amount of... is anyone here in the dating scene? Tinder? Is Tinder a thing in Germany? Yeah, over the last minute, I've been with my wife since 1991. Most of you weren't even born yet. Yeah, but Tinder, I think you swipe left and right over the last 60 seconds, 1.1 million swipes in the last minute. That's pretty much, right? YouTube, 4.3 million videos viewed, and this is just the data that humans are creating. We're moving towards 50 billion connected devices, according to Ericsson. 50 billion connected devices generating data. All this, which looks really impressive, it will be a small fraction of the total amount of data that will live in our societies. Final trend, before I go to a little bit more content, need for speed. These are 4 products. Quicken is a personal financial management product from Intuit. It actually was in Germany for a while as well, in the 90s if I'm not mistaken. 84, it was founded. Look how long it took to get to 1 million and to 50 million users. 6 years to 1 million, we never reached 50. 10 years later, eBay comes along. 30 months to 1 million, 80 months to 50 million. 10 years later, Facebook comes along. 10 months to 1 million, 44 months to 50 million. 5 years later, Angry Birds comes along, hits 50 million users in about a month. They didn't even know how long it took them to reach 1 million. It just flew past. And any Pokemon Go fans here? Yeah? At least one who is honest enough to admit it. Well done, my friends. My compliments. Yeah? 2 summers ago, enormous explosion of the number of people playing Pokemon Go. If you are following a fast follower strategy in your industry, this should really worry you. Yeah, the change, the adoption in the market is so fast that if you're not there in the beginning, then you're going to lose it. Yeah, it's a winner-take-all strategy these days. If you don't like customers but you like money, yeah, I have a little bit of another example. Yeah, in Sweden you're not allowed to talk about money, but in Germany it's okay, right? I think. Yeah? Okay, good. So I have a product. The product sells at $1 billion a year. Most companies express their R&D budget as a percentage of revenue, 10% of revenue, which gives me a $100 million R&D budget. In Sweden, I always have to explain the math. We have some problems with our math education. Yeah, but in a room full of engineers, I don't think I have to explain the math, right? Or anyone who didn't understand this one feels too stupid to ask. Yeah, that's funny. Come on, guys, stay with me here. Huh? My new product development cycle is 12 months. I'm going to give you two alternatives. The first alternative is I'm going to focus everything on efficiency, and lo and behold, I'm successful. I'm 10% more efficient. I still ship after 12 months, but I only spent 90 million instead of 100 million. That's pretty cool, right? Even in high-tax Western European countries, although you're much better off than I'm in Sweden, by the way, $10 million is still a nice chunk of change, right? I mean, you can probably buy a pretty decent car for that, I think. Here's your second alternative. Yeah, the second alternative is you focus everything on speed and you manage to reduce your development cycle with 10%, which means that you can start to put your product in market after 10.8 months rather than after 12 months. And because, assuming you are selling at a flat rate of $1 billion a year, and assuming you're not cannibalizing any existing business, you're adding $100 million of additional top-line revenue to the company. Now, what would you rather have, 10 million in savings or $100 million of additional revenue? There is something to this math thing, I can tell. Yeah? In most audiences, there's always some smartass who tells me, I want both. But that was not what I was offering here. Look, you've earned back your entire R&D budget just by being faster. What's not to like? And not only that, what happens in companies, not in Germany, but in other countries, what happens in companies that focus on efficiency? Well, they put all kinds of processes, milestone reviews, board decisions, and other things in place in order to make sure that nothing inefficient will ever happen in the company. By extension, nothing at all happens in the company. When you focus on efficiency, you get slowness as a byproduct. When you focus on speed, because you're looking to automate everything, you actually become more efficient. If there's one thing you take away, don't focus on efficiency, focus on speed. Speed solves everything. Speed and sales. Yeah? Good. Now we're going to go to this new business operating system. I probably need to speak a little faster again. I'm not very smart, so I can only do simple models. I have the 3-layer product model. This basically divides the functionality in a product, in a platform, in a portfolio into 3 layers. It's a very simple model. There is a layer of commodity functionality, stuff that you need for your product to work, but no one is going to pick you over a competitor because of this functionality. When you picked your new mobile phone, the fact that you could make phone calls with that mobile phone did not factor into your decision, correct? You would have been really annoyed if you couldn't make phone calls with your phone, but it wasn't a differentiator from a buying perspective. Then there is a differentiating functionality layer, the stuff that makes customers pick you over one of your competitors. And then there is the innovation and experimentation layer, where you're looking to find future differentiation. So you try out a bunch of things up here. Typical success rate is about 10%. So one of those things really resonates with customers. You pull it into the differentiating functionality layer. It sits there for a while. It helps you drive sales and all this other good stuff. And then it commoditizes and it becomes, because customers are not so interested anymore, competitors have caught up with you, and then it becomes part of the commodity functionality layer. This model we're going to use a bit during the presentation. These are the typical questions that companies ask themselves. How do I get more innovation in? And for this, you need to work with your ecosystem. How do I deliver innovations to market faster? For this, I need speed, agility, continuous integration, continuous deployment. How do I know whether what I'm building provides value for customers? Well, here I need data again. How do I identify commoditization of functionality? When do I decide that it's not differentiating anymore, it's now commodity, and I should stop investing in it? I need data for that. How do I minimize total cost of ownership for commodity? Well, here I need to work with my ecosystem. I need to work with others to decrease my cost for commodity. And then finally, how do I organize for all of this? And this is where empowerment comes in. Hierarchies are dead. If you're in a hierarchical organization, you're at risk. Yeah, take this away from this talk. We're going to come back to that. So we're moving towards a new business operating system. Agility, I know that all of you are in love with agile software development. I'm in love with agile software development. I dream about agile software development in ways that I cannot describe to this audience. Yeah? Okay, that was a little too much. Can you take that out of the video, please? But what we have to understand is that agile is a means to an end. What we're looking for is business agility. What we're looking for is that the business is agile. Software agility is just an enabler for business agility. We need data, so we need to instrument and measure everything. We have to focus our own people and our own time on what is really differentiating for our customers. And we need to focus on empowerment because that gives much more speed and focus on the market. I'm going to talk about 4 dimensions of the Stairway to Heaven model. And the title Stairway to Heaven got me in trouble in Australia when I gave a talk there about a year ago. Yeah, because I said that the Stairway to Heaven is a much nicer song than the Highway to Hell. Immediate response from the Australians. What do you have against Australian music? Because Highway to Hell is? Which is an Australian band. Okay. I still think it's a nicer song, and it's for sure a nicer place to end up in, right? Okay, sorry, I will stop with the religious references. You know, in Sweden, everyone is atheist or claiming to be an atheist, so you can make all the religious jokes you want. In Germany, you know, people actually go to church on Sunday. I have to be careful. Sorry. This is how your company is evolving over time. Traditional development, the next time is agile. You've all done agile. Once you've done agile, you move to continuous integration. Continuous integration, you bring verification and R&D together. Once you have continuous integration in place, the answer to the question, can we ship, will always be yes. You can always ship if you have your continuous integration under control, right? And now it becomes a business decision when you ship. We can ship now without this feature, or you can wait 1 or 2 sprints and then you can have this and another feature in the product as well. You decide. Yeah, once I have that in place, we move towards continuous deployment. And trust me, continuous deployment is not something that only online companies do these days. I was at a wind turbine company in Denmark a few weeks ago. You know, those big wind turbines? New software in every wind turbine every 4 weeks. Continuous deployment in wind turbines. Who would have thought? Ericsson, with selected customers, they went out with a big ad in the newspapers during the fall of last year. With selected customers, now pushes new software to live base stations, the thing that your phone talks to, every 2 weeks. Continuous deployment is becoming a reality. With people from Siemens and Bosch and a few other automotive companies and aeronautics companies, I run workshops around functional safety and continuous deployment. This is happening. If you're not there yet, you should. Yeah? And then finally, R&D is an innovation system. Then rather than designing features in-house and shipping them, what I do is I start to run experiments out in the field. You all know A/B testing on websites? Yeah, do I need to? So if there are a few people that are going like, I know too. I don't know. Yeah, websites, some people see version A of a feature, other people see version B of a feature. You repeat it for hundreds or thousands of people. You measure which person or which version performs better by whatever you define better. Yeah, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to place version A in the field and I'm going to place version B in the field. Companies like Booking and Microsoft and others now run 2,000 to 3,000 A/B experiments in their websites continuously. Yeah, the former CTO of Booking.com, Brendan Bank, told me a while back that they had run 30,000 A/B experiments during 2016. That's where development is going. Also, embedded systems companies, I can't mention any names, are now moving towards solutions where when they do continuous deployment, they push version A of a feature to some customers, version B of a feature to some other customers, and they measure which version is doing better in the field. You want my black humor joke on this? You know, Volvo cars? No, okay, not Volvo cars. A certain automotive company cares a lot about safety. Yeah, so you have version A of a new functional safety or of a safety feature, and you have version B of a safety feature. You put them in cars, 5,000 cars of type 1, 5,000 cars of type B. You let them run for a couple of months, and then afterwards you measure how many accidents, how many... Is this funny? No, okay. Okay, maybe not. But this is, okay, I'll stop making the bad jokes. Sorry about that. Why do we care so much about this? Because there are 6 feedback cycles in speed that we care about. We care about the development cycle. How often do I decide what to build next? The requirement cycle. What are the things that I'm going to build? Quality assurance cycle. How often do I test the quality? Governance cycle. How often do I determine how many features, how many defects to fix, how many architecture refactorings to put in place? Deployment cycle. How often does my software go out to the customer? Value creation cycle. How often do I validate that what I'm building is actually generating value? And if you look at this, is that when every step you go up from traditional to agile to CI to CD to the innovation system, some of these feedback cycles go from long to sprint based. Sorry about that. So what you see is that when you go from agile to continuous integration, now quality assurance and governance go from long to sprint based. When I go to continuous deployment, my deployment goes from long to sprint based. And this is important. Why is this important? Because if feedback is slow, if it takes 3, 6, 12 months before I get feedback, I will make decisions based on my opinion, on what I believe is best. And then you get into the discussions where people say, I've been with this company for 25 years, I know what's best, trust me. Trust me. Huh? When you move towards the sprint-based model, you can start to take data-driven decisions. Then it isn't experience and beliefs anymore. Then you have data to back up your decisions. Now, in the interest of time, I still have another 24 minutes. I have to start talking a lot faster because I'm not even halfway in my slide. We've done work on architectural technical debt management. If you want to know more about it, come and talk to me during the coffee break. I'm here until lunch. I will do lunch and then run for the airport. We've worked on a technique, continuous integration visualization technique, where we visualize all the test activities that happen in a company. This is a certain Swedish telecom company who shall remain unnamed. One of the products several years ago, when an engineer checks in code, he or she runs the, because you do test-driven development, right? Right? You do test-driven development, right? Right? Come on, guys, stay with me here. You run your own test cases before you push it into the team branch. The team has more test cases that they want to run, so then you run some tests in the team branch. Once you have you pass this, you go to the single branch. Any company that has more than a single branch for its major product portfolio, actually for anything, should stop doing that right away. There shall be only one. It's like the Lord of the Rings. One ring to rule them all. Yeah? Was that a good reference? Yeah, I don't know. My favorite movie is actually The Matrix. You know why? My favorite line from The Matrix. Some rules can be bent, others can be broken. I have acceptance testing in the main branch. Yeah, so if it passes that, then in this company, every 2 hours they pull together all the code, they compile it, they create an executable, and they run all the test cases that fit into a 2-hour window. Every night at 8 o'clock, they kick off a 10-hour test suite that runs from 8 in the evening until 6 the next morning. And when you come back in the morning, you know if the test that ran during the night, whether you broke anything or not. Every Friday night at 8 o'clock, they kick off a 50-hour test suite that runs into the night somewhere between Sunday and Monday. So when you come back on Monday morning into the office, you've had such an elaborate testing of your environment that you actually know what you're talking about, that you probably are at production quality if you passed everything and there's nothing major there. Why 8 o'clock on every evening? They had some difficulties with engineers going home. I'm not sure if you have Jolt here in Germany? Yeah, but in Sweden there's Jolt, which is a very high caffeine drink that engineers like to drink, and then they keep going into the evening. And they wanted people to go home. So what they basically said is, we kick off continuous integration, the testing at 8 o'clock in the evening, because that means that everything you build and haven't checked in by 8 in the evening will not be tested during the night, so you might as well go home and have a life. How cool is that, right? One of the things that is important, in a world of continuous deployment, you cannot afford to create the software for every individual product by itself. What you need is automated derivation of the software for every product from a single code base, So every time anyone checks in code, you generate the software for all the different products, you take them through your continuous integration environment, and you determine whether you have production quality in each of your products or not. You can't afford to have software for every individual product. You need to take it out of a single code base. I did a lot of work on this in the past when I was still young and innocent. Young and innocent, now I'm only according to most people. Yeah? Data. Dang it, I have to speak faster. Data, companies go through a very predictable, similar model. We go from ad hoc, where the collection, analysis, reporting, and decision-making on data is manual. Then you go to collection. Every time your car goes to the service, the car company will put a big plug into your car, suck out all the data on how your car was used since the last time the car was in service. They've been doing this since the 90s. Then collection is automated, but any analysis, reporting, and decision-making is manual. Then you move to the automation stage. Then you get those dashboards. You've all seen the dashboards. Then you move to data innovation. In data innovation, what you get is you have a team of data scientists that look into the petabytes of data that you have sitting around for interesting patterns. Whenever they find something, they go to the relevant management or R&D team and say, do you want this on your dashboard? And then, if you want this on your dashboard, something else gets taken off and this gets put on, so you have a live, constantly evolving dashboard, but it doesn't stop there. The companies that are really good at this, once they understand the correlation of a certain set of data parameters really well, they put it in the code. Yeah, so there is a certain company that makes an online puzzle game. I will not mention the name of the company because this is being recorded, but I mentioned them earlier. Yeah, so while you're playing this game, 90% of the CPU cycles on your phone go to analyzing player behaviors. And the first analysis that starts is this player stuck at this level in the game? And if you're not stuck, it will stop. But if you are stuck, then, and this is a game where you can buy gems. Yeah, you have in-app purchases. Yeah, then the second analysis will start. And the second analysis is, how likely is this player to buy a gem from us? And if you're likely to shell out a few euros to get the gem to solve the puzzle, the game will do nothing. It will just let you suffer until you whip out your credit card, buy the gem, solve the puzzle, and move on with your life, right? If it turns out that you're not likely to buy a gem because you're one of those cheapskate Dutch people, yeah, then the next analysis starts with this. How likely is this player, based on millions of other players, to buy a gem from us at a later stage in the game, if we just help the player get there? And if it turns out that you're too cheap to buy a gem now, but you might buy a gem later on, the game may decide to give you a free gem. How cool is that? And now everyone's looking at me like, Jan, that's cheating. No, it's running a business. Yeah? And now I can also see, Jan, that is not a very ethical use of data. And that's perhaps true, but it's very illustrative. Anyone here who uses Spotify on a regular basis? See, lots of hands going up. Why do you use Spotify? Not because of the music. Seriously. You're technology-oriented people. You can find music in all kinds of torrents and other places. The main reason people listen to Spotify is because Spotify will introduce them to music that they like that they would have never found otherwise. Because Spotify uses your likes and the likes of people like you to identify things that you might like but haven't actually identified. The power of Spotify is not music streaming. It is finding, this is my personal opinion, let's be clear on that. Yeah, it's the power of you finding music that you would have never found otherwise. That's the power of data. And then the final one is evidence-based company. You know what that means? It means that everything in the company is driven by data. When I worked for Intuit, Google was across the golf course. And my friends at Google used to describe to me how performance management was done in Google. Your boss had nothing to do with it. What they would do is they would pick 6 people, 3 people in the same team that you're part of, and 3 people from other teams. And these people would have to give all kinds of feedback on you, but among others, they had to give 3 names of people that they think performed less good than you, 3 names of people that they think performed as good as you, and 3 names of people that they felt performed better than you. Yeah? And once you get, for every individual in the company, from 6 different sources, 9 different names, you can very easily, quantitatively calculate a rank order from the most valuable employee in the company to the most useless piece of human being in the company. And then salary increases and bonuses becomes a very simple mathematical formula, right? Isn't that fun? That's data. That's us, right? Everyone's going like, wait until my union representative hears about this. Yeah? Not funny? Well, that's what I see many companies do. Why do I care so much about data? There are many reasons why I care about data, but this is one of them. This is a very old study which shows that somewhere between half and 2/3 of all the features in a typical system are waste. They are never used, or they're used so seldomly that they do not justify. The investment in them does not justify. It's not justified, right? We couldn't believe that this is true, so we did our own study with a company in Gothenburg that shall remain unnamed. Yes, this is surface starts. It's the number of times a feature is used. Some features are used a lot. Some features are used occasionally. And the vast majority of features is never used. Whenever I do a lot of consulting with a variety of different companies, every company I walk into, my starting message is, half of all your R&D is waste. You just don't know which half. I can help. Sorry, bad joke. How do you go about this? Well, one of the techniques that we've developed, we've done lots of stuff, and I have to go through this very quickly. I pick a feature, and before you start to build the feature, you sit down with product management, and you agree upon what is the expected delta in behavior, either system behavior or customer behavior, that justifies the building of this feature. Why are we building this? What will measurably change when we build this feature? And you know, we did this at a certain Swedish company. We had 10 product managers in the room. There were 3 product managers that were actively supporting the prioritization of a certain feature. And when we asked them what would be the measurable effect on the system, we got 4 different answers. Just to give you a feeling of how confusing this is. Yeah, so once you have an agreement on the expected behavior, the first thing that you do is you implement the minimal viable feature, which is the first 10-15% of the functionality that you think gives most of the value. And for all you startup-y folks, I know that this is outdated terminology. Yeah, these days, people know what the new terminology is? You all remember minimal viable product? The new term is minimal lovable product. Yeah, so this should be the minimal lovable feature. You get it out into your product because now you have continuous deployment in place. Together with instrumentation, you get data back. And now you can start to measure how is this thing actually performing in the field for real. And then you can start to look at, well, you know, I built 25% of the feature. I got everything I wanted. I move on to something else. I'm not going to even build the rest. Why bother? Yeah, or I built 15%. I see zilch. I don't see anything. And what you then should do is just drop the feature, remove it from the code, don't continue, move on to something else. Because clearly it was a bad idea. Often there is some movement and where people say, oh, we just should build more of the feature so we get more of the effect. Or you get really weird data back and then you analyze how the customer is using it, and then it turns out the customer wants the feature, but not in the stupid harebrained way that you built it. You should have built it in a different way. Yeah, and then you basically drop the existing implementation, move to another implementation. This is just one simple, we've done tons of work on this stuff, but this is just one of the models that you can actually use. Ecosystems, I'm not going to talk about this in detail because of the amount of time, but you move from being extremely internally focused, yeah, me, myself, and I, me, myself, and I, me, myself, and I, to me and my ecosystem. Yeah? You remember this model? The 3-layer product model from the beginning? I don't know what your attention span is. Yeah? But I showed this slide earlier, remember, right? I've now asked well over 50 companies, what percentage of R&D is spent on commodity functionality and what percentage is spent on differentiating, innovative, and experimental functionality? You know the answer? You want to know the answer? For a typical company, 80 to 90% of all R&D resources are spent on functionality that no customer gives a flying hoot about. It should just work, but they're not going to pick you over anyone else because of this functionality. That's the state of software engineering today. Look to your left and to your right in the row that you're sitting. You are the only person in that row that is working on differentiating functionality. Everyone else is working on commodity. Not the reaction I was expecting. Yeah, but this is the state of software development. 8 or 9 out of every 10 people in R&D work on commodity stuff. And the 1 or 2 that are building new functionality that is supposed to be value-adding, half the time they get it wrong. My feeling is that there is a slight room for improvement here. Yeah? So, and then what we did with companies, and again, I'm going to hop over this relatively quickly. Come and talk to me afterwards. We've basically developed a model called the 3-layer ecosystem strategy model. It's a bit of a mouthful, but what we're basically saying is you have an innovation ecosystem, a differentiating ecosystem, and a commodity ecosystem. And then we went out to all the software center companies and we identified what strategies are they using in innovation, differentiation, and commodity. Yeah, so internally, collaborative, and external. And very quickly, yeah, a certain Swedish telecom company, whenever a platform product becomes commodity, they ship it off to a low-wage country, typically in Asia, where people sit in little bamboo huts, making a fraction of what a Western engineer makes, maintaining this platform. And that's a very effective cost reduction strategy. BMW, Volvo Cars, and a few other automotive companies had initiated the Juni initiative, which was Juni was an open source or semi-open source in platform for infotainment systems in cars. It didn't work in the end, but what they tried to do was to create an open source initiative around something that they all needed, so they would share the cost of building it, so that they could all build their own differentiating stuff on top of it. And then finally, externally, Axis Communications is a web security camera in Lund, also part of Canon these days, that is in the software center. Whenever they have video processing functionality that is commoditizing, they go and work with the Linux community to have the Linux community take it on in the main branch of Linux. Linux community gets early access to very advanced video processing functionality, and the maintenance cost for Access at that point dropped to 0. You with me so far? We're going to move to the last topic because I only have 8 minutes left, and that is including questions. Empowerment. For all the managers in the room, this is your slide. In a typical organization, gaping void this is not me, this is someone else. Basically, his assessment of companies is the people at the bottom are the losers, the people in the middle are the clueless, and the people at the top are the sociopaths. Now, you can take it for what it's worth, but the problem is that we are actually moving through a model where we are traditional and very hierarchical. Agile is already a first step towards empowerment. Then we move to cross-functional empowered teams, then to self-managed teams, or fully self-managed units, and then a fully empowered organization. Why do I care so much about this? One is, remember, my goal is to help companies successfully overcome the digital transformation. Whether you get disrupted or not is not an accident that happens. No, it depends on how you organize your bloody company and how you organize your people. And hierarchies are not the answer. Hierarchies are very good at some things. Scaling, controlling many people from a central position, efficient for repeatable tasks, harmonization of process, globalization, handles low complexity situations well. But they have a set of weaknesses. And the weaknesses are slow decision making. And in a fast moving world, that's almost a deadly sin. Power is driven by position, not by capability. Everyone who has worked for a shitty boss knows all about that. Yeah, there's this idiot that I report to, he or she, it's often a he though, I must admit, because that's the biggest idiots. How am I doing, all the ladies in the room? That's good, huh? Yeah, yeah, so that's a problem. Tendency to be internally focused. I worked with one German company where a manager, a large German company who shall remain unnamed, where a mid-level manager could decide to do something that was bad for the company and bad for one of his competitors, or something that was good for the company and neutral for one of his competitors. What do you think he did?
Bad.
Exactly. Yeah? So you're internally focused. Easily gravitates to politics. Not in Germany, in other countries. Yeah? They're highly resistant to change and challenged by high complexity situations. And now you think, oh, Jan, yeah, but we know, you know. But here's the thing. Here's the kicker. If you look at Gallup, employee engagement, 30% of employees in the US is engaged. 50% is not engaged. They're just there for the paycheck. Around 18% is actively disengaged. What does that mean? It means that they will try to harm the company if they can get away with it. Yeah, this is, if you're alone in the office, you will kick the printer and hope it breaks. Yeah, it is taking, if you're a truck driver, dumping products in the back of the truck, hoping they break. Yeah, to actively try to disrupt sales meetings just to harm the company. That's how much you hate it there. Yeah? And then I can see all of you think, Jan, this is the US. In Europe, it's much better, right? So here are the Swedish numbers. I didn't have the chance to look up the German numbers. 16% of employees in Sweden is engaged. 73% is not engaged. And luckily, only 11% is actively disengaged in Sweden. I don't know the German numbers, but I could imagine that they're not much better. And the interesting thing is, the younger you are, the less engaged you are in the traditional hierarchical organizations. My friends, we have a real crisis at our hands. According to, I know, well, you all read Swedish, right? Sorry, this was, I made this slide first in Sweden. This says Tyskland, which is Germany, loses at least 151 billion. I don't know what currency, maybe in Swedish pesetas, but in any case, a lot of money. A lot of money, yeah? There is a new form of organizations developing around self-management. There are no bosses. The notion of wholeness, you can be yourself. You remember IBM from the 90s? Everyone wearing the gray suit and the blue tie and the white shirt? Or was it the other way around? Blue suit and gray tie, I forgot. Yeah, but everyone had to look the same, talk the same, be the same. Yeah, the whole notion in these organizations, you can be yourself. If you want to have a beard, you can have a beard. As a woman, I would not recommend it, but still, yeah? Yeah, but you can be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be something you don't want to be yet. No top-down strategy. This is the most extreme form. And the interesting thing is you have roles, activities, you have something called the advice process. I used to think either you have a boss that says, this is what we're going to do, and if you don't like it, you can go to hell. Or we all have to agree and sing Kumbaya around the fire. Yeah? But that's not true. There is a third alternative. The third alternative is the advice process, which means anyone in the company can make decisions that pertain to their job and their job role. But they have to ask for advice from everyone who is affected by their decision. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that when you have asked everyone for advice and some people have told you that they do not support the decision, you can still take the decision. Yeah, there are several books around this that you can talk about. Examples, Agile is a first step on this road. Second, Holistic Organizations is a book. You can download it for free on the internet, Reinventing Organizations by Frédéric Laloux. He's basically describing the evolution of humans as tribal, agrarian, scientific, industrial, postmodern information, and then holistic, authentic, and that's where we move towards. Now, holacracy, you all have heard maybe of Zappos, the shoe selling company that is now part of Amazon. They moved to holacracy. They basically completely removed managers and work in circles now. And then exponential organizations is another example. It's a book that describes how companies like Uber and Airbnb can scale so incredibly fast in the way that they do it. And again, they focus on interfaces in the organization, dashboards, so extremely data-driven, experimentation-driven, a lot of autonomy. Again, there's the autonomy again. And very much driven by social networks rather than traditional hierarchical organizations. So empowerment, and this is important, principles over orders, personal leadership over leader-follower, trust over audits. I'm not sure who of you work in an industry that requires audits. The moment you audit a team, you're telling them, I cannot trust you to do your job. And then the trust goes away. Customer first over organization first. Team-appointed managers over manager-appointed teams. Yeah? If you have a boss, then you get to pick who the boss is going to be. Diversity over homogeneity, agility over long-term planning, emergent strategy over top-down planning. Conclusion. I have 3 conclusion slides. Bear with me. But you've never been so happy to see a slide that says conclusion, right? Yeah? In the future, all companies will be software companies. I don't care where you work. If you work for a bank, you work for a software company. If you work for a retailer, you work for a software company. If you work for an automotive company, you work for a software company. Everyone is becoming a software company. Developers, developers, developers. Yes? The second thing, and this is, my friends, if there is one thing that I'm encouraging you to spend your summer on, we're moving towards 3 types of software engineering. We have the traditional requirement-driven software engineering. Product management throws requirements over the wall and you just build whatever they tell you to build. Yeah? The second model is what we call outcome-driven development. Your job for the coming quarter is to increase conversion on the website from 3.2 to 3.4%. I don't care how you do it, figure it out. No requirements, but explicitly specified outcomes. And the third type of development is the traditional machine learning, AI, deep learning approaches. I have tons of data, I have the data labeled, I can create deep learning models or machine learning models, I can train them using the data sets that I have available, and I can put those components into my system so that software systems of the future will have these three types of components, or these three types of development, both traditional software components and AI-driven components, where I do continuous deployments on each of those components independent of each other. Again, very important. And I get data back from every individual component as well, the system as a whole, from the field on a continuous basis. This part you know. This you may have an inkling of, but you need to get really, really good at. And this, my friends, is what I encourage you to spend your summer vacation on, because it's going to be critically important to know this. In Sweden, the Wallenberg family, you all know the Wallenberg family, has now ponied up 3 billion Swedish kroners, yeah, which is a little less in euros, but it's still 300 million euros in a research program to support artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and software, because they view this as the biggest risk to the Swedish society. If you are good at all of this stuff, you are golden. Okay? Quick. Companies are being disrupted. Even though we live in the best time ever, companies are being disrupted increasingly fast. There are several change resistance patterns that I actually threw out at the presentation because I didn't have the time. And to survive, companies need to adopt this digital business operating system, speed, data, ecosystems, and empowerment. This is my offer to you because I love you. I love you so much. I offer a survey that companies can run through a self-assessment where you can get insights on how you're doing on several of these dimensions. I can't do the full one, but if you can pick one dimension and get a free survey done at your company, if you're interested in this, drop me an email or come and talk to me afterwards. Also, I am one of those people that can't leave a keyboard alone. This book I'm selling on Amazon.com, these two as well. But if you drop me an email, jan@janbosch.com, I will send these to you for free, those latter two. Yeah, or you buy them for $9.99 at Amazon.com, your call. But knowing that you're German, and knowing that Aldi and Lidl come from this country, I'm pretty sure that the people that want it sent me an email. And with that, my friends, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's okay. According to my wife, my ego is big enough already. So thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.